Table Talk is not your typical D&D TTRPG podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of tabletop roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies. And we are live back with another great episode of Table Talk. Today we're joined by a very, very special guest. Would you like to give us a lovely introduction?
Sure. Hello, I'm Erin, and everybody sort of knows me online as Erin My Laundry. I'm a cozy horror streamer. I'm a tabletop writer and the founder of the TTRPG Collective.
Hell yeah! Yeah. Oh, did you have more?
I am lovely, and I'm so happy to be here.
I love the comments.
You're like sun, moon, and rising sign.
Like I'm the lovely. Yeah. What is your
really
social security number?
Yeah. Right. Like.
We have met Erin pretty much since like the beginning of our little podcast. When we joined Threads, you were like one of the first people I think I connected with on there.
Really?
And we're really like the first people that were like, these girls are cool, and like started interacting with us. Mm-hmm. You have since started the TTRPG Collective, which is such a cool project. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that started and how it's going?
Yeah. So just a cool little announcement. We might actually hit 300 members today. We're at 294. And I've got like 5 new ones today. Yeah. So thank you. So we started the first week of October. It was just sort of a weird like pipe dream that happened on Threads where I said, I kind of want to like dive into the tabletop space and kind of like help people support each other because I'm a community manager in my day job. And what do you all think about that? And everyone's like, do it, make a Discord. And so I did. And it's a place for people in and adjacent to the tabletop roleplay game industry to just share ideas, collaborate, support, provide services. There's games that are being written. There's jams that are being had. There are voice chats and educational panels happening. And it's just a really cool place to just like kind of stick it to the D&D man, I guess. It's just a really fun place for indie people to like actually engage in people power. And I love it.
Yeah, I creep on the like the writing sub channels a lot, and it's like they help people hold each other accountable, and they set their little like due dates when their things are due. And I'm like, this is very cool. I've not jumped into writing anything yet, but I was like, I love that because it's like an all year NaNoWriMo vibe.
It is. It really is.
So good.
I love it there.
Yeah.
And it's gotten bigger than me. Like it's almost at 300, and we have a website being made, and like we're kind of branching out into having one shots happen on Twitch, and it's just really I'm very proud of it, and I really just believe in it.
Yeah, you're doing such incredible work on there. And then on top of, is that also like where you met like the Latent Arcana people?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
That's
it
cool.
was
Nice.
it was a mixture of that, and one of them showed up on my partner's channel, Evandale, and happened to like recognize that I am the tabletop person, the tabletop collective person, and then he's the Evandale person. And then he's the artist for Latent Arcana, and then he went back to his team and was like, y'all have to check them out. And then we just took off from there. They're fabulous people. Like Latent Arcana games are just the best.
Incredible. We just got off a call with them about our own website, thanks to you helping us make that connection. Because like that, I love the aspect. One, the community is always just like so incredibly supportive, and you've really kind of amassed like that sweet spot of a bunch of people coming together and like really helping each other out and stuff like that. And it's incredible. But on top of that, like I feel like it's so helpful and aligned with a lot of what we're currently doing when we're meeting with other creators, where we're just kind of like, hey, we all have like different sets of skills that we can help each other with. And like, you know, for me and Mariah, we're like very business oriented people because of our day jobs. And we've treated this like passion projects as a business. And I love sharing that aspect with people that like they have the passion, but maybe not the know-how of like how to start pursuing that as like a career or a business or a side gig
or they just
or whatever.
didn't consider it, which is fair, because there's so much that goes into it when you're first starting something. Like, you don't always consider like the legal ramifications of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's something that my partner was actually just talking to me about with wanting to develop his world. And he was like, I want to do market research, but I don't know how to like, who to ask for this or that or whatever. And I was like, that's me. And I keep saying like, that's what I do. But also like, that's what the collective is for. And that's what like branching out and getting to know people. And then you remember like, oh, I know if I ever need any Candela Obscura help, it's Johnny. I know if I ever want to talk. Yeah, it's just Johnny. And I know that if I ever need any help with, if I ever need any experience, like anecdotal experience of like women in the gaming space, I can rely on you two. I know that if I ever need any podcasting help, I can rely on you two. And like Nate from AARPGs, I can rely on for tech questions and audio questions. And it just made so much sense to have everybody just like have a hub of sharing that knowledge.
And it's like, why wouldn't we continue to build that and like bring more people in and make it more and more of a dynamic thing? Yeah, like I love, you use the term like mutual aid for it a lot. And I love that term. And I feel like that puts a bow on it in such a lovely way. And it's just like everyone bringing the things that either they know how to do or they're like weird hyperfixations at the moment or things they do in their day job or like, and just throwing it all in there. And it's like, probably at some point this will be useful to somebody.
Exactly. It's definitely the thing that I hate about capitalism. The thing that I hate about like the game commodifying the game industry is it's like literally taking people's passions and like giving it a monetary value. And sometimes that can't work. And especially if you're running up against big conglomerate companies like, you know. So,
the ones who shall not be named.
Yeah. So if you have like people who are like, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do this thing, like what you were saying, Mariah, about like, I don't know how to do things legally. You make friends with somebody who is a lawyer. And then you offer that lawyer, if they have the ability and the spoons for it, they can not give you legal advice, but give you like resources of where to go.
Tools and resources to kind of where to start kind of working that avenue.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important. And I think one of the biggest helpful tips I can provide people is like learn how to provide value when you're asking for like a service back. So everybody has a variety of skills, and maybe, you're not the most business savvy or you're not this, but like if you are an artist and you like drawing, there's plenty of people in this community and hobby that are like, I would kill for some fucking character art, and like learn how to exchange those skills for, adding value and not just asking for the help without at least giving something in turn, because then that I think always leaves you in a positive light and a positive relationship with that person.
Yeah, and it leaves you in a positive light, and it also makes it so much easier to ask for help, because it always feels kind of weird and awkward and smarmy to just be like, hey, can you do a thing for me? But when you can offer like something in exchange or offer something first and then somebody can reciprocate, that's for all us neurodivergent babies, which is the majority of the hoes in this community, that makes it so much easier.
Exactly. It's not like what shiny rock am I giving? I know, right? But that's one of the things that you touched on that I loved is the exchanging of skills is super important. And with all the layoffs happening in the video game industry, you see, and then when you see like all the job openings of people that are only looking for senior or lead roles, and you're like, how the fuck am I supposed to get my foot in the door? And one of the things that we did in the collective to resolve that, which because it's kind of the holiday end of year, we're slow a little bit, but we decided to write a game. So there is a game, an adventure being written by collective members, and anybody can join at any time and get credit for their work. And you don't have to know anything about what you want to do. So if I don't have any art experience, but I've always wanted to try, I can go in there, and there are artists that are working on it that know that by joining with experience, you are going to be teaching people. And now when you are done, you have a credit in art that you can add to your portfolio.
That's really cool.
That is so cool.
That's incredible. I love really, everybody. Really cool. It takes like a really special, like, all my papers just fell. It takes like it's like all of my D&D notes. It takes like a really special, like, kind of community to kind of like table the idea that you are going to make an exorbitant amount of money in order to help your fellow human. And it's sort of like this whole, if one of us gets hit, we all roll initiative. And I love that vibe. I think we felt that at PAX U a lot too.
Oh yeah.
100%.
For sure.
And both in those events and also online, like for example, not to get spicy and topical, but the layoffs at WotC and the way the community has like rallied around those that are now unfortunately no longer employed or going to be no longer employed soon by them are like, hey, these are talented individuals, really core people that for whatever reason they're deciding to let go. But just pushing that out there so that they are able to go find jobs still within the industry and like support them. And I love the way that the community like rallies every time there has been an event similar to that, to help support those creators in their careers and their aspirations, both as like industry professionals down to like the tiniest, person in the industry type deal.
Yeah, it's super inspiring. I love it here. The indie scene is like the best part of the tabletop industry, in my opinion.
Yeah. Agreed. It's also such a huge well of creativity because every single person I feel like we interact with since starting this podcast, like people that are making indie TTRPGs or doing art or running actual plays and GMing and all that stuff, I'm like, and PAX, I feel like was the biggest, like a mass of that because now getting to interact with those people in person, I was like, I am overwhelmed by like creativity of all these people around me. And I got home and I was like, I need to create everything. Like I started drawing again, which I hadn't done for a while. And it's so good and I love it.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like there was no sense of competition. Like, for example, the other channel that my partner and I run, Ink Got Crit on Twitch, is like a variety indie, like punk tabletop channel. And that is very much aligned with the same kind of vibe that Roll D5 has. There's no competition. We all support each other. And I love that because it's such a, I feel like it flabbergasts people that are in like those big corporate like mindset where you have to produce like top tier content to be like legitimate and has to make millions of dollars. And you just have to be genuine. Like imagine that you can just be a very genuine, vulnerable, squishy human and everybody can support each other.
Yeah. And that was really interesting. I think I know for sure for myself, and I think Ollie also for you, coming from a business background, like not necessarily gaming industry, but from our like day jobs and then going into doing this a bit more seriously, where you do have to kind of stop and it's like, oh wait, no, like everyone's genuine and people are genuinely excited about what you're doing and we're excited about what they're doing. And like, there's no weird undercurrent of competition or you feel like you have to like spear point an industry or like whatever, you play the like bingo in your monthly meetings, whatever people are saying in your corporate jobs. And it's so interesting. And also kind of healing for people who are more used to that. And it's like, no, it can just be a safe space that you do things you love and exist in and enjoy genuinely.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. It's so, I could talk about this for hours and cause that's my day job is community manager and coming from Neopets, that was like my dream job. And the dev team was so not for any like malicious intent, but they were so out of touch with what the audience wanted because they were afraid to talk to the community because of how fiercely loyal they were to the brand. And it really took somebody in a community position or just somebody to get, because I started as a content intern, just learning about the production process. And I just started talking to people in their Discord, and I was just saying, like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to see more of? And what do you miss about the old Neopets? And what do you want to see in the future? And they were sort of stumped. They were like, no one's really asked us before. And we also don't really want to engage in like the sliminess of like, you know, the potential for the sliminess in the crypto space. And we also don't want to engage in like, you know, actual currency necessarily. We want to support a project we believe in, but we don't feel heard. And that's so valid. And it really like, it just comes from my background, having people be understood, especially consumers, is like paramount towards the direction of where you're going to go as a creator. And it just made so much sense then that people are these creators at like PAX that were like, we want to hear. They're not trying to like pitch you a game necessarily. They're saying like, you want to like, hey, let's play a game right now. And then like they bring you in and you play a game and then you just bond and it's a relationship, and it takes a lot of time and investment, but it seems to be working out, like you said, healing. It seems to be really helping people.
100%. And I think we've all felt a lot of the shift of like shifting away from like traditional D&D to like opening avenues more towards like the indie TTRPG scene. And I think you even shared like the thing today in like our own little Discord server of like the hashtags that are currently trending, and the fact that like TTRPG is technically above Dungeons and Dragons right now. And we were all like, yeah, like, it's spicy. It's a small win, a small spicy win, but it's like you know, there's so many other avenues to find your fun, and where, you know, like I'll always, I think, have a soft spot for D&D, but I think especially we didn't really start looking at other systems till we started this podcast. And once we started, that's when we started kind of branching out. And then, you know, Mariah took on like VTM, and then I started watching a bunch of VTM stuff because I wanted to like figure out the world, and like through interacting with other creators and, you know, realizing all the different systems, like has been such a great resource for that, because they constantly feature new systems and new games on there from like smaller or independent TTRPG producers and stuff. It has been so great and so fun to know that like the ways that we adapted D&D to our playstyle, because we didn't feel like it really was for us at our particular table, exists out there from other people that have also seen that gap, and like finding other systems that are like a little bit more roleplay heavy, or have different, more engaging ways to handle combat. And I'm like, it's so good.
It was also interesting, like when we were at the award ceremony for the gaming awards at PAX, and like seeing all of those TTRPGs, which like the majority of them, I would say I had frankly never heard of before. There was maybe a couple that I knew by name that I honestly, I don't know about in depth. I have just seen like women are werewolves, and I'm like, well, that'll never leave my brain. That stays with me forever.
I have that one. It's so fun.
It looks
I
really
want to play it so bad.
It's really fun. It's a good game.
Like so many of them that look so cool that I'm like, oh, I've never seen this before. So seeing those new games be highlighted and be recognized on that big of a stage was really, really cool.
And you have like people that aren't, they're not veterans of the industry. Cassie won Best Designer, and she's only been at this for 2 years. This is her second year. And that was like so inspiring to me, because you don't have to fucking be Gary Gygax. You can be just somebody that just shows up. You can just
be somebody that makes a good game.
Yeah. Or just somebody that wants to tell a good story or create something that is just for themselves. You know, like I was on another podcast earlier today, and I was like, part of the process for me in terms of like beating the imposter syndrome is I can't ever get to like the point I'll be happy with if I'm not doing it for me. And like the micro RPG I wrote, which is about love languages, I wrote because I was feeling really shitty about myself, and I wanted to feel better about myself. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. And in 2 hours, I wrote a game about love languages. And it's not the best game. It's probably never going to win an award. And it's got maybe 7 downloads. But I did it for me. And that was like the best feeling. I was like, okay, now I can actually say I'm a published writer. And it's just really...
I love that.
It's so cool. And I just loved...
Also, what is the name of that game? Because now I have to play it.
It's called Among the Pretty Rats. And it's on itch. It's for free. Yeah. So it's just like a quick 1-page game about degens finding out that they are valid as they are.
I love that. That is so valid though, because like I think about that a lot from like a novel writing perspective as well. Of like you have to, like you will never please everyone, and if you try to please everyone, then no one, including yourself, will ever be happy. Exactly. And so it's like you have to make something that you genuinely want to see in the world, and then put it out there and trust that other people who will also connect with it will connect with it. And like that is not easy to do and is scary in its own way. But at least, if nothing else, you're being authentic to yourself, and the people 100%. That like it genuinely enjoy it. And so you don't have that thing of like, I was pretending to be a different person. Are they really going to like what I make when I'm me? Because you're being authentic.
Exactly. And it's so much easier. I think it's easier these days for people to cut through the bullshit. And there was something that actually I'm going to bring up to my partner when I'm done, because I just realized, this was said. There's like this notion that you have to, what you bring is unique to the industry. It's never been done before. It's just this whole unique thing. That's bullshit. There's like 5 ideas, there's only sun. Exactly. But it's
Welcome
so
to
much
TTRPGs
easier.
where we steal from everyone. And everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's just plagiarism all the way.
It's highway robbery out here.
I'm trying to name characters for a novel, and I just had I was at Ollie's this weekend, like on her couch beside her while she was drawing. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm copy pasting names into a note like a psychopath, so I can figure out what the fuck to name these main characters." Because the names I want to use are already used by other series that I read, and I can't do that. So I'm trying to find better ones. It's we're all in the void here.
We're all struggling. But it's like you don't have to make something completely unique. It just has to be it has to speak to you. And if it doesn't speak to you and you're just doing it for like external like validation, they're gonna know. They're gonna know. It's a very
they're gonna know.
I don't know. It's just, to me, it just feels like and it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's the thing, is like people think that they're gonna be like judged so harshly. Just don't be a dick. Like it's really it's really that easy. You don't have to be great. You don't have to be perfect, an expert. You don't have to be a master craftsman. You just have to be good. Like, just be good and yourself.
Good human.
Yeah. And people will support you. And it's just, I don't know. It feels like a no-brainer now, but you know.
Hey, listen, common sense is a rare commodity than we give it credit, to be honest, because there do be some people out in this world. And keeping that in mind if you do receive like hate or whatever for something that you're like, we're really good friends now with like the Solvently Trolls and stuff, and they put out a lot of like content around, you know, like calling out like the feminist origins of like D&D and stuff.
Or the sexist origins of D&D.
The misogynistic origins. Sorry, not the feminist. Yeah. The misogynistic origins of D&D. My bad. But then doing extremely thorough research, and like I've found it so helpful as a DM because I don't know a lot of those origins of like the traditional stuff. And it's helped me realize like, oh, okay, I don't really want that in my game, or like understanding where it comes from and realizing how I can adapt it better. But it's also just super informational lore wise too. And they receive so much hate online from like mostly men, that are not understanding the full context of what they are saying. Cause if you listen to the episodes, it's very educational. It's not attacking it in any way. It's just being like, hey, we could do better as a community as a whole. But understanding that like, that's not a reflection on the quality of your work or what you're putting out, because they're putting out stuff that genuinely is good, like they're passionate about, and they do find their audiences. They do find their people that are like, no, I love this. And that vein of like, you will never please everybody. There are some people that exist in this world that just want to like spew hate online, and you shouldn't pay them any mind, because as long as you're doing the things that you genuinely enjoy and putting that out there and that you're proud of, you will eventually find your people. And even if it's not equating to 1 million views or whatever is going to like make you feel valid, honestly, having like a small group of people that genuinely believe in what you're doing and are connecting with that is so much worth so much more, because of the impact that you're having. And eventually that comes back around, and you're following maybe small, but then you realize like you really genuinely helped somebody. And to me, that's worth so much more than anything else.
Absolutely. It's people power is exactly what it is. And I just had my first like kind of really nervous moment on, as like the founder of the collective, because we have a jam that's happening right now, and it's called Hope Jam. And, when I talked about it on Threads, there was somebody that reached out and said like they won't be participating in it because of the like very whitewashed and very complacent liberal mindset of like the meaning behind hope punk and that sort of, and then like how solar punk was kind of co-opted by Nestle with that commercial that they came out when. It's kind of like very ironic that Nestle comes out with a solar punk commercial. And all of that made total sense, and all of that was incredibly valid. At the end of the day, it was really helpful discourse, and I don't take it personally. It's not that person isn't calling me a bad person. That person has a really passionate viewpoint that's different than mine. And that I took the time to try to have, and I did have a conversation. I asked for more resources, and then I went back and I made sure everybody in the group was aware of this, and we talked about it. That's literally the most you can do at the end of the day. That's all you can do, is just try to relate and work together. And if something is bad, then it's okay to say that was wrong and make a mistake and learn from it. And the same with like people that put out like opinions that are not great takes in the tabletop world. It's okay to actually go back and reflect on that, and then be like, oh, I actually fucked up, and here's what I learned. And there's like a huge, like, it's really easy to get defensive online and to double down and to also be just very unkind out of fear for not knowing what's happening. And like, for example, the people that are super hateful about like, and super misogynist, I can understand that where they're coming from is a place of fear of the unknown, of the future of their passion. Like, they don't know that these changes aren't going to, they're not going to ruin their game. They don't know that. They really truly believe that their world is rocked by this notion that dungeons can have ramps and combat wheelchairs exist. But the way they're going about it, obviously, is, there's something to be said about it. But
it's a limited perspective.
Yes.
Of like, you cannot separate your experience from other people's and let things, and have nuance and let things coexist. And like, it's human nature to be defensive when you were criticized, or for that, like, and that comes back to the thing of like, your initial reaction is not necessarily indicative of who you are. It's your second reaction, or it's what you actually do. And because, like, it is scary and concerning and anxiety inducing when you worry you fucked up, or that you didn't see someone point something out. It's like, Jesus, I should have seen that. Why didn't I see that? That was such a dumb thing to do or say. But accountability. And if you could have that conversation and you can just take accountability for it, that's okay. You don't always have to have a full length like conversation about it. It's also fine to just be like, cool, I fucked up. I'm going to now correct that. Thanks for pointing it out. And I think there's a very big difference in criticism that is that, or criticism that is helpful or in trying to educate or present a different perspective, and then just people that are just angry at the world and listen, the world's like fucked up.
There's and you're like, cool, this isn't a conversation.
Exactly. There's a lot of reasons to be angry, but like, that is not about you, really. That is about that person and what they're dealing with in their life and how they're seeing the world, and that's not yours to account for or try to fix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your world is bigger than, at the end, not your world is bigger than their world. But what I mean is like one hateful person, and this is separate from the example I gave. This is a different example. Totally. If there was somebody that was a complete asshat, their vitriol is not going to consume your world, and it's not going to infiltrate your support system. It's kind of ends in their own head. And that is, or like at their keyboard kind of thing.
Yeah.
The thing that what you said about like, it matters like your second action. There was, I'll be very vague about it. There was a panel that was exposed as being lacking in representation recently. And that company that's hosting the panel apologized in a very technically well-formed apology, like, you know, the 5-point apology that everybody kind of tries to follow. The community that supported that there was nothing wrong was, to me, the second action that you're talking about, because it speaks to what you've nurtured. If I've nurtured in the collective this sort of like rhetoric of like, there's certain people that can't play this game, or certain people that can't be in this space or whatever, then that's going to be the seed that's planted, and that's going to be what grows in that space. That is your second action, because everything that you do, they're going to latch on to that as like a gospel, like, oh, they can do no wrong, instead of what they tried to do to me, which was to try to come out with something where they were like, oh, we didn't do a good thing. And instead their community was like, don't listen to them. And it's like, they don't know what they're talking about. It's very nuanced, and it's okay to talk about this. That's the thing that I fucking, I love, because this was something that I took away from Neopets. The dev team was very, rightfully so, very afraid of negative feedback. And they didn't know what to do with that. And they didn't know how to like change their trajectory based on the anger of the people that they're trying to, that were considered fans of the IP. But I was like, why not? We should be able to talk about this shit. And like, you should be able to say like, oh, you know, I didn't even think about that. I am only one fucking person on a dev team. Like, I didn't think about all 1 million of you and your individual opinions, and how each one is equally important in its own right. And that, you know, it's beyond me. That's okay. And you can make mistakes, and you can have bad takes, and you can receive feedback and change. And it's okay to talk about it. Like, you don't have to hide and rug sweep shit and be like, obviously I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah.
It's very normal though. Like, it should be normal. You should be able to be messy.
And I think normalizing that, like, again, rant for the psychology nerd within me. Like, there's been a lot of discourse in recent years about things like cancel culture. And like, if people make a mistake, and like, again, not to get into the extreme examples of cancel culture, that's not what we're talking about right now. If someone does something truly heinous, keep them in the barn. Like, I'm not touching that. I'm talking people who like have made a mistake, and then, but it's the fear of like, okay, I can never make a mistake, or now I must be perfect, because if I ever mess something up or make a misstep, I will never recover from it, and everyone will turn on me, and I'll be the villain, and they'll hate me forever and run me out of town with torches and pitchforks. And like, that is a very real and like understandable concern. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't take accountability for things, or you shouldn't like do things, but it's getting better, I think. But that is also an interesting way to look at like why people react the way that they do, because of that fear, or why people don't do things, or don't make things, or pull themselves back, because they don't know how it's going to be received.
It's also kind of having enough foresight to know like, okay, I fucked up, and we've seen this with countless people on the internet where it's like they fuck up, they try to cover up the fuck up. It inevitably gets revealed how they tried to cover up the fuck up, and now they're in a deeper hole. And then the final apology they give, nobody cares to even accept, because they've watched you make a clown of yourself trying to cover up and, you know, do damage control on the thing. When it's like, if you had just admitted from the beginning that you fucked up in an earnest and honest and genuine way, people will accept that much more willingly. And it's like, yes, if you lose some people, it's not the end of the fucking world. The people that understand that you are human will respect that you took accountability and stick with you. But you know, if you do something really truly fucked up, then you deserve what you get, I guess. But like, if it's a normal thing of like, I said something really stupid when I was fucking 13 on Facebook or some shit, and I'm a completely different human, then it's like, yeah, acknowledge that what you said as an unlearned 13-year-old was shitty, and that you're trying to do better. Like, that's the most you can do at that point. But accountability is so huge, and you will avoid so much shit on the later end if you just own up to that shit, as you do with life, to be honest.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Like, you can wind that back to like a very micro level of like, if someone in your life hurts you or betrays you in some way, and then they try to cover it up, of like, in a lot of ways, it is the disrespect of the hiding it that is as bad, if not worse, than what originally happened. It's like, okay, we could have worked through what you originally did, but now that you've tried to make a fool of both of us, like, we can't move past this now.
Yeah. And it's very like, I think there's like this fear that like everything is set in stone, and at least like the tabletop world, like you publish something and then that's it. There's nothing that can be done after that. But as we've seen, like you have Itch, where if you go on there to publish a game, you can change it and you can re-upload different versions and you can add addendums, and BTM added their erratas for like adding things and taking away stuff. And you know, the whole like when Paizo did a whole fucking remaster. And with understanding that there are things that like probably shouldn't be kept in the like general world of tabletop anymore. And that's fine. Nothing is permanent. And
things age weird sometimes. Like, everything doesn't age like wine. Some things age like bread, and you gotta adjust that. It's, Okay, I have a very different thing I've been wanting to talk about, because every time I see you, this is a very left field moment. I mean to ask you to talk me through cozy horror, and I forget every time. And so now that we have you, I must know what cozy horror is.
So for me, cozy horror is, so you've got like the aesthetic kind of cozy horror. An example that I will give is the game A Night in the Woods. That is a very eerie, kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat kind of game. There's like, you know, hijinks afoot that you don't really know what's going on. It's a mystery. It can be a little like grim. You know, the themes are dark. To me, that is considered, there are horror elements in that game, but it's also very cozy. You have that feeling, like every time I see Greg, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's the cutest.
I know, I love Night in the Woods so much.
I love it so much. And it's that sort of like horror taking space where it typically doesn't belong is a really cool theme for me. It's why I also think that horror, when it's queer coded, is also like super important to the queer community. And like I saw like a video where somebody was saying that like the Babadook is a metaphor, I guess, for coming out of the closet. And and like having like Pinhead from Hellraiser is like look into the BDSM and kink community and talks about like themes of harm and consent and manipulation. And you could do that with anything, almost anything. For me, cozy horror became a kind of vibe I adopted in my Twitch channel when I started playing Phasmo. And this was like in the end of 2020. I started playing Phasmo, and I didn't really have anybody to play with. I'm a single mom, so I don't really have like a whole lot of time to have like a social life. And also it was, you know, COVID. So I was playing Phasmo by myself. And I decided to just like put lo-fi music on in the background while I was playing. And then I realized I could do it after my therapy appointments and talk to the ghosts as if I was like unloading what I learned in therapy. And it turned into like this whole, like, it allowed me to reflect on my session. It gave me, it's basically a walking simulator because you're just wandering through houses, empty houses. And it allowed me to sort of like engage in scary games, which is something that I had always been kind of nervous to do. And then we sort of, like, my chat started talking about mental health a lot and neurodiversity and like queerness and things that are to me very cozy themes. Mm-hmm. And it just became this very like gentle place to be scared safely. And that is that's what cozy horror is to me. That's kind of what I've just adopted on my channel.
That's incredible. And I love it so much. And playing Phasmo with lo-fi music, because like I love horror games. I can't play them because I startle very easily. Even worse now that I have adrenaline issues. So, like, I mean, we've played, what is it? It's not the Dark Anthology games. Is it the Dark Anthology games? Or there's like
it is the Dark Anthology games, yeah.
Yes. We've played that. Like, Ollie and I and our other friends have played those. And I start so well. I'm like, I'm gonna see this one through. And then as soon as things get tense and those quick time events start coming up, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna hand that controller to the left because I am out. Because I will fully freeze and not react appropriately, and the person that we're attached to will die. But like, yeah, trying to play horrors with like some cozy lo-fi like music, I'm like, I love that. That's really interesting.
It also like kind of forced me to enjoy spending time with myself. That is something that was really, really hard for me to do, coming from like a very abusive marriage and very codependent like background and dealing with a lot of narcissism, and learning to like figure out who I was and learn to love myself and spend time with myself and appreciate my own company. And it just, I mean, there's also like the fear of, I just didn't want to deal with toxic lobbies. But at the end of the day, I decided to like, I decided to like expand on that. Yeah, exactly. And doing that live, like not knowing and joining like a toxic lobby just sucks. It doesn't feel good. But yeah, just
I got ego problems and I can't handle a 12-year-old talking down to me, bitch. I can't do that.
Oh, I will drive to Minnesota.
I will drive to wherever this 12-year-old is located and give him a real talking to. I can't. No, I'm not allowed.
Yeah. I love it. It's something that I really just like started to just do with any scary game that comes up. I'm just like, how could I just make this like super soft?
Are there any games that, like horror games that you want to play but you're still nervous to play, or that you're still trying to figure out how to soften that edge?
There are games that I don't think are meant to do that. Like, it's not meant to be soft. A lot of co-op games. Phasmo's a little different because you can play with one person, but like the Outlast Trials is not meant to be a gentle game.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah.
You can't lo-fi your way through that.
No. And there are games that are like meant to be experienced as they are. Visage is like one of the ones that I really appreciate for its jump scares aren't cheap for the most part, and the story, it's important to hear it like as it is. And a really good example of a game that is a horror game solely on the theme of grief and loss, but it is not a horror game, is Grease. You play as a girl who has lost somebody, who is depicted as a statue that's like shattered into pieces. And it's a side-scroller, like, puzzle game. It's beautiful. And the music, I think I went on this, like, 40-minute tangent in the second part of my stream when I played it, where I just talked about the theme, like, the feelings that were being evoked through the music, and how the music was touching the color theory in the game at the same time. And that kind of stuff you can't alter. You have to experience it for what it is.
As is. I would love
very valid.
This idea of cozy horror in a TTRPG.
I have.
Do you know of one?
I know of a few. I'm going to think about them because I know I know examples, but I can't think of the names. But I will plug a project I'm working on that also encapsulates that. One of the games that I'm working on is called Good Bones Underneath. And it's a 2-person tabletop game, tarot card based, where somebody plays as a ghost haunting an old house, and somebody plays as the person that just bought the old house and is fixing it up. And the person that bought the house is escaping a bad situation, and the ghost that is haunting the house did not mean to die when they died. And it's a story. Each card has a question for the person that draws it, whether it's the ghost or the homeowner. And together you rebuild a house over the course of a year. So you get 12 cards each and you answer questions and act out scenes. And there's like, there's themes of like grief and loss and renewal and all this stuff that's super dark and depressing, but very cozy.
That's precious and I love it. I wanted to read it. I wanted to.
Thanks. I need playtesters.
I'm slamming my credit card on the table.
Give it to us.
One of the names of one of the ones that I remembered, which is also a tarot-based game, is Black Mass is one of them. Mm-hmm. And that is now I want to look it up. It's a witches game. It's like set in like during the witch trials. And the art is like that old like woodblock style.
This is sick.
Yeah. And it's
I'm like looking at the reflection through Mariah's glass.
The way this looks cool. This looks rad as hell. Oh my God.
Yeah, Black Mass is a really good example of a cozy horror tabletop game. Also, Old Gods of Appalachia is one that I personally really love.
I keep hearing so many good things about it, and we need to pick it up.
I've listened to a little bit of it. There was some scenes that are quite graphic, and I was like, "Well, this maybe wasn't the mental health day for me to listen to this." But I want to actually get into it. Like my baby right now has been Magnus Archives for like a bit. I am foaming at the mouth with our friend Oak mutually over like the Magnus Protocol when they released that. And also like I would love to start writing like a horror anthology-esque narrative podcast. And
that would be fun.
Like it's the entrance scene between, I don't know, like a lot of those core principles of like really good horror of like not seeing the thing is scarier than seeing it. And like what you leave out, what you describe explicitly, and giving those moments of reprieve and humanity for the people in there, as well as so you can feel the loss of that when the spooks come. And all of that is just so interesting. Like one of our best friends, Bex, is like a long time horror lover. And she and I have had like a lot of long convos about this driving back to Austin from Ollie's for D&D weekends. And the thing I really love about horror, and have loved for a while, even when I couldn't really consume it, was horror has a way of distilling people down to their base instincts and the core parts of the core traits that sort of define them. So like how you react or the choices you make in certain games or in situations or how you feel about things. It strips back a lot of the social niceties and the conditioning and what you feel like you should do. And like you are just your core reactions. I think that is a really interesting place to tell stories.
Yes, it is. I fucking love it. It's so juicy. I love the podcast recommendation for you. The Black Tapes is really scary and really good. And the guy's voice in it is just, it's Strahd level sexy. It's so good.
Oh, you sold me. I'm already there.
I knew the buzzword. I knew the buzzword. It's so good. It's really, really good.
What is the premise of the Black Tapes?
The premise is it is a fake studio it's like this legit studio, and I'm doing air quotes with my fingers, where a journalist, a podcaster, is going to this man's house who claims to have $1 million reward for anybody who can provide video evidence of something supernatural or paranormal that he can't debunk. And so far, he has been able to debunk everything except for this closet full of black tapes. And it turns into this story of like, they're all kind of connected and they try to figure it out together. And there is a really steamy subplot. And it's, it does. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really good. But to your point of like, it really strips people down. I think sometimes the best horror stories are when the scary thing is so familiar to you. It's like of course that's what it is. Like if it's a part of you or if it's a fear you have or if it's a trauma, and that kind of story is just,
that's what I really loved about Magnus and the way they personified the fears, because
I have not gotten into that, so I will have to. I'm going to add that to the list.
Ollie still hasn't finished it, and I'm holding. Now that she started Vox Machina, I now have to switch my metaphorical gun to finishing Magnus. Because she got me into it, and then I've finished it.
I'm pretty far in now at this point, though.
And, like, I got my manager into Magnus, and then he finished it before me, and he's like, so are you done? And I'm like, homie, I'm on the 3rd season. Like, and he's like, finish it now. And I'm like, I'm working on it, Chief.
Yeah. No, it is very good. They're also, like, so short, each one. So they're very like easily digestible in quick bursts. So if you can sit down and listen to them in a long stretch of time, but if you're like, I just got like a quick 20-minute drive, I can get like 2 of these hoes in here.
Oh
yeah,
that's amazing.
That's what I want to do with writing, like a narrative podcast, because I like the short bite size because it doesn't drag, and so you can just you don't run into that,
and they're easy to like
make drop off.
Yeah, this looks great.
I sat on at PAX. Me and Johnny went to a horror panel with like Spencer Stark and Sarah's Coffee and Banana Chan and like a couple other people who I'm forgetting their names now, but they were also like really incredible. And that was, Johnny took a shit ton of notes, and I was like, you're gonna send that to me, because my fucking phone alarm went off in the middle of it and I got like petrified, so I turned that shit off and I was like, I'm not gonna even dare look at my phone the rest of this time. But it was so good because they gave so much good advice, one of which I'll share, of like, I remember this one individual was like elaborating on descriptions and things and how like, again, the less is more aspect of it. And, you know, they gave the example of like, you know, I always hated my mother. Her fingers always bent the wrong way. Or something. And like the moment of like silence, and he's like, y'all had hella visuals in your brain, and I didn't have to really go deep into descriptions. Yeah, like all of you pictured something, and it's totally different from each other, but like what's going on in here is
and
so
that's
much more
a you
impactful.
Problem.
And that's a you problem now. So just saying like little random things, and I was like, ooh, that's so good. And then one of the other things, like, to bring it back to TTRPGs and like horror and other things that I was like, I found super helpful. I had a lovely conversation with Sarah after the panel where I was like, hey, I'm a first time GM. Like I started this year, really. So we're about to have like our 1 year. And I had like a horror arc with Mariah's character. And one of the things I was struggling with was intentionally causing consensual discomfort, as in like, it is a dark theme, and where it's not meant to be cozy, it's not meant to be comfortable. There's villains
like body horror and
body horror and like, you know, war crimes and shit going on in here. It's real dark, and I'm a chronic people pleaser. So sitting at behind the DM screen and like describing things that I could tell were causing, you know, really disturbing visuals, and seeing the discomfort play on my my players' faces, and knowing that that's okay. And like not trying to pull back, because I'm like, there's 2 wolves inside of me. One is like, I need to tell a good story. The other part is like, my friends are uncomfortable, I need to stop. But like,
one is like, please stop, and the other is feast.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, I gotta, like, me doing the discomforting thing is like the thing that is providing the joy right now. And she gave me just like really, really good advice in the sense of like, it genuinely is one of those things that's going to start coming with experience, but then always making sure to like sit down afterwards and get that positive reinforcement from your players, that it's like, hey, was everything good? And like, of course, Mariah was like, that was like, literally all my players were like, that was the best session that I've ever played in, period. And so like, that was validating, and I think will make it easier the next time for me to like kind of play deeper in that space. But like, I genuinely enjoyed it. It was just interesting to feel that in myself, of like the disparity of like wanting to pull back and needing to go harder.
Yeah. And it was helpful for me going into like running like our vampires campaign, because like it's a mix of like girly pop dating sim and court politics, and then there's also going to be some truly unsettling things that happen because you're all monsters. And with like crafting scary stories and things, of knowing at least like with like our core, because I have it's the same set of players that play in that Strixhaven game that played with me for vampires, then it's like, okay, cool, I do have runway to lean in to this. And like it is feeling it and being like, okay, and it is still tough when you're doing it, but knowing that like we do have that runway is comforting for me when I start bringing out some of the big guns that I have.
Exactly.
I blind added our friend Oak, who is a perma DM and has a thing of just being a chaos goblin and doing some horrific shit in games. And Ollie fully freaked out when I added him. And I'm like, don't worry about it. He's just here for the information.
Because he's my little tool in my back pocket when I'm trying to plot against y'all. So seeing him come into your game.
It's like, how the turntables.
I don't like being on the other side of that coin.
Yeah.
Because I know what that man's capable of.
Scary man scary when you don't know what he's going to be doing, huh?
No, it's not supposed to be turned against me.
I don't know that's going to be turned against you. We still have to determine that. But.
It fully will. I know that man well enough to know that he's just going to creep into your fucking DMs when he sees you doing some shit. He's like, so I have a suggestion. I know exactly how that man works.
But it's good that there's like trust established because you definitely need a table. You can't just like, I mean, I'm sure you can fly by the seat of your pants and just jump into a horror game without knowing people, but there takes like a certain amount of not just like negotiation beforehand, but the aftercare afterwards. Like you are all engaged in this scary story. It's not just the players. It's not the DM. It's just there's a lot of shit. And like what you said, you felt like you're being pulled into two different directions where you were like, I want to go back because I love my friends, but I want to lean in because I love my friends. And that sort of like conflict requires like nurturing afterwards.
Yeah, on all sides, truly. Yeah. And like that was another thing at that horror panel where obviously it was like very much emphasized like lines and veils and safety tools, especially when you're dealing with horror scenarios and knowing exactly where are you allowed to play within and constructing all of that juicy horror within the comfort of the players. Because people that genuinely want to experience horror and those scary themes and whatever, like know what they're there for. And sometimes you might find yourself in situations where it's like, hey, maybe they had one idea of this thing and then once they got into it, they're like, oh wait, hold on, this wasn't what I was imagining. And it's just about the check-ins and making sure that's all well communicated. But ideally you want to find people that you are very, very comfortable with, because not only is it the comfort on the DM side of like knowing I can go hard without like causing harm, but then also having the comfort of the players being comfortable enough to voice when something has gone a little too far, because the communication side of it has to come both ways. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like what we say with a lot of like finding the right table and compatibility and stuff. And I think I've mentioned this before of like, there's a thing in the Vampire the Masquerade, like source book at the very beginning where it's effectively saying like, there are a lot of forms of horror in the world, and there's a lot of real life horror, and then there's, the horror that we use to construct stories. And you do not have to use things or feel like you shouldn't try or feel like you are only limited to certain numbers of things. There are a lot of different ways to evoke tension and anxiety or fear if that's what your party wants, but in knowing the flavor of that they're open to and what they're not, and what you're open to and what you're not is really important. It's like there's a bit in Magnus as well where like after every season the creators will go and like talk through things, and Johnny, the guy that wrote it, who's like he used his full government name as like his name is Jonathan Sims, and the guy that is the archivist is Jonathan Sims. He's like, that's a bold choice I made. But aside from that, of like, he talks about like writing for the different fears and it being a thing of like, if it doesn't unsettle you when you're writing it, then you're not doing it right. And it's like, yes, but also there are lines and you have to know where it's like, you don't have to do everything. You can just pick a handful of things that are unsettling and go with that.
Yeah. And also on the flip side, because I was like, when you asked me what I wanted to talk about, I was like, I could totally talk about this. On the flip side, horror can be really fun and like kind of sexy. Like,
oh yeah, 100%. Oh yeah,
like there's something.
Stop. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. There's something.
I want to be aroused.
Exactly. Yes, caroused. Exactly. There is something to be said about the design of a truly deplorable monster where I'm just like, I can fix him. And like, have that energy.
It's for me.
It's and it's almost exactly. It's so it's so fun to like to be able to lean into like that very problematic. Obviously, this is with the consent of everybody involved, and also understanding that you shouldn't be a shitty person. But there
also, don't do this in real life. This is just for fantasy. This
exactly.
We love our problematic, morally gray men in fiction, not reality.
Not
exactly. But even beyond evil men, freaking monsters. Like, there is something to be said about leaning into horror in such a raw, like, truly deplorable way where you're just like 1,000 eyes, tentacles, horns, like a smash. Yeah, it's
like I can make it work when there's a will, there's a way.
This is something that my partner like.
I'm an endless font of creativity. Let's get it.
He likes to get on my case. Well, not get on my case. He likes to tease me. Very fun. Like it's funny. We're roasting about how all I want to do is like marry centipedes, and I'm just like, yes, and like there's so.
And the issue is where? Nowhere.
Is it all the legs or the long body?
It's. You know what? I think so. In this case, it was a giant centipede that was guarding the entrance to a like cave that the party had to go down. Mm-hmm. And my character was like this Sylph character that rode on a bumble cloud that was called Thunder Bumble, I think. And
that's cute as hell.
Yeah, and they were really cute, and their name was Periwinkle Zephyrus, and they convinced the centipede, like, I'm gonna come back for you, and I'm gonna marry you. Like, we're gonna give you a life, like a good life, and I'm gonna like buy you jewelry for every one of your legs. I think it's
He's a good man, Savannah.
It's good. I think it's the danger, like. This giant centipede, and you can imagine like pincers and like, you know, like disgusting fluids and like coming from the mouth and stuff. It's so gross, and
you're like, that is a
husband. He could kill me, but he chooses not to.
And I don't know if it's something like I feel like people can resonate with this. There is something about leaning into that disgusting dumpster sludge in your brain that you scoop out from the corners that you have not cleaned in years, and you just nurture that, and it's fun because it's a game. It's a fucking game. Yeah. And it's just like you don't have to take. Life is already a shit show, and it already sucks, and it's already hard for a lot of people. And it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be scary in the game. You can still go up against like everything and be like, yeah, but like, is it romanceable?
Life is hard, very centipede.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another part of horror that is just, I love talking about.
Oh yeah, I fully like am a canonical monster fucker. We'll say that with my whole chest. But I've met so many, especially like so many women and like feminine presenting and queer folk that are also like in that vein, and especially like with fan fiction and all those great avenues. And I had a great conversation one time with a friend of mine because we were trying to discuss it as like, okay, but why? Why are we so down atrocious this way? And I was like, I had an interesting little tidbit of personally. For me, it's the element of like, and this is coming from my experiences as cis femme woman, but the experience of like, you know, cis men in particular, like tend to hide their danger, and you can't really dictate who is dangerous from who, and that's why we kind of live in the state of hypervigilance. It's kind of comforting to see the danger fully depicted and know what you're getting into going in.
That's what you meet first. It's not behind a veil.
Yeah. And I'm like, I know exactly what I'm getting into at face value. And then there's the element of like Mariah said, of like, it could choose to kill me, but it doesn't. And that makes me feel special.
Yeah. And
I feel that.
And there's a sense of, a sense of control there too, right? Because when you're in a game and you're playing like a Curse of Strahd game, and you're like, my goal is to bard that man up. Like, I am going to seduce
like, I'm about to be his third wife.
Exactly. Yeah. And the cool part, this is something that I find, I take away. This is why I say the BDSM and the tabletop community is sometimes a circle. That Venn diagram is sometimes a circle. And there's a sense of reclamation that comes with actually having complete control over a situation. And that sort of safety, especially if you have experience like I do in SA, and just like that sort of just really dangerous kind of
not feeling
trauma.
Safe in your own body or like around, especially sexual situations.
Exactly. So to be able to explore those themes safely and have complete control of that situation, and you get, as long as you trust your table and that's negotiated, that you can like red card, you can X, you can cash in those safe words, and you're good. Nothing's going to happen to you. And I love that I can be completely free to make the choices I want to make. And that ends up being that I am choosing a very despicable character to like romance, but like I'm good. I'm reclaiming that something that had been taken from me. And that to me is like really powerful, and it's fucking awesome that tabletop games can do that. And I think it speaks a lot to people who aren't cishet men that are in the space, that they feel represented in not just the outside in characters and just aesthetically, but like stuff that has been taken from them can be reclaimed, and that is like super powerful. And to me, tabletop is like the best form of art activism, and I will die on that hill.
I love that. Yeah, the reclaiming, and then also just like, I mean, we all joke about it, but it's very valid and true of like sometimes processing your traumas through it, and like having a modicum of healing of like, or facing your demons in a literal sense of like the story, and giving them manifestation, and then vanquishing it, and then, like you said, regaining that power. We actually just had a really, really great experience this past weekend was our D&D weekend, and we ended our Strixhaven session a little early, and we had our friend Alyssa who was like, well, she's had this one shot that we've been trying to find time to play when we're all together. And she's like, well, since we finished early, we could get my one shot done. And we're like, fuck yeah. And so we're like making characters and whatever. And as we're like sitting there rolling through it and deciding which characters we were going to do, our friend Bex was like, I think I'm going to play Tanari, like our old Ravenloft character from the campaign that we like left to go form this one, which was like a pretty toxic scenario that we left to go build this new thing. When Bex said Tanari, I had the moment of like, oh shit, I want to play Cadence. And then Mariah was like, I'm going to play Eva. And then Alyssa had a moment where she was like, oh shit. Because then her character is in the one shot. So she had the realization of like, they're all going to see each other at some point in this one shot. And we just made the canon of like, this is alternate universe. They're lower level. They haven't gone to Ravenloft yet. They're so happy. They're just a wholesome little party.
We're all from Eberron. It's fine.
We're all from Eberron, and we're all in like a shitty little guild together doing little bumfuck quests or whatever. And we go do it. We complete the quest, and we went to like her character's clan essentially, and got to see the manifestation of this clan that we've been hearing about across all of her characters, because all of her characters belong to this clan across every game she's ever played. So it was super cool to see that like in the game. And then when we rejoined with her character, who's now older, she like basically like is old and escaped Ravenloft essentially, but like the canon of our characters in Ravenloft is real gruesome. Like my character fully died, was betrayed by Bex's character. Eva gets decapitated, like real dark shit.
No. Eva was going to die, and then I had a like my character Anya that I play now in Strixhaven is a reborn, because I had planned to play Neris, who was a reborn and Strahd's creature, and she'd been his reborn, like his spy and stuff, for like 400 years, and every time she would catch on, he would just kill her again to reset her memory. So she was a psycho. And so she was going to end at some point where she probably either betray the party or be killed by Strahd, but Eva was going to be killed pretty horrifically in front of the whole party so that I could step into
So then this version of Alyssa's character, who's now old, who's made it out of Ravenloft, is seeing young, happy versions of her old party, who she saw like meet really gruesome ends. And we had like such a great little interaction of her like hearing I played a bard Warforged, so hearing her music again and be like, it's been so long since I've heard that tune, and then sitting together and her telling them about like everything that happened in Ravenloft and giving them a warning of like you know, when the goddess that sent us to Ravenloft comes, turn her down because nothing is worth your life and your happiness. And we just all sat there sobbing.
I was fully crying.
Sobbing.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Because
we were like, we loved these characters so much. I'm literally tearing up right now. We love these characters so much. And because of like extraneous situations with the dynamics of people in that group, us having to make the decision to like call that campaign, because like the campaign was so good, the game was so good, and we stuck out an unhealthy situation for longer than we should have because we loved the game.
Yeah,
and we didn't want to lose these characters. So like us having left, this was like such a good moment, and I was like, oh,
and it was like
so good.
I know for me, after we left, like I had a very hard time making a character when Ale got to play gearing up to play Strixhaven, because I was just so apathetic about it because Ravenloft had gotten so bad. And it was hard to see how something could be better. And so, like having this real moment of closure with these characters that like we haven't played in so long was both devastating and wildly healing.
Yeah.
And that the whole fostering that dynamic of like getting that power back of having good people at your table is like, that must have been so empowering.
Yeah. It was very good closure for both like our characters and us as players being like, we did the right thing. You know?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Super good. And on that note, we've definitely gone over our time. But such a good combo that I'm not mad about it. Thank you so much, Erin, for this lovely chat. I was looking forward to it literally the whole time. If you want to give us one last little shameless plug, tell people where they can find you, as well as plug your TTRPG Collective and the awesome things that they're doing. Go for it.
Sure. So you can find me on Twitch at Erin My Laundry. And you can also find me on Evandale, my partner's channel. I'm in all the games and I work behind the scenes a lot. On Threads and Instagram, it's _ Erin My Laundry because somebody took it.
Right.
And I know. And you can find the collective on Discord, but go to Threads or Instagram, TTRPG Collective, and there is a link there for you to join. Or just like ask anybody. I'm not going to say ask anybody in the indie tabletop scene, but honestly, it's like a 6th degree of Kevin Bacon. If you need to know anybody, you can ask somebody, and somebody knows somebody that knows that person.
If you
and the
throw
same
a
with the
stone
collective
on Threads, you will
You'll
probably
hit somebody
hit one
that's
of the 300 human souls that are a part of the TTRPG Collective.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I am all the time.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been another episode of Table Talk, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcast. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddysite.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.